Yeah, so I was gonna say, so I don't know what to really talk about in terms of like the new or what is the surviving franchise of Star Wars. I don't know really what to say about it. I tried to think about it like overnight and the last couple of nights. I'm like, what can I truly say other than like the Mandalorian because it's got a season two and that's it. Because you heard about the news about Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? I was the one that told you that.
Yeah, it's like kind of came out of nowhere because like there was that like sort of like that one rumor that got around from the fake profile that said it was like completely cancelled, and then they're like, no, it's not cancelled yet, it's still going to go ahead, and then they're like, oh wait, no, actually we're delaying it and pushing it back and sending all our staff members home and whatnot, and then we're getting told that we have Kathleen Kennedy stands up on stage in all her smut glory saying that all the script's done and everything's good to go, and now apparently it's only two that's completed and dropping it down to 4 episodes instead of six. And you're right, like Mandalorian's probably the only really good thing we've got to hold on to at the moment because nothing else really kind of looks overly promising right now.
But I just don't understand what is plaguing Lucasfilm or what is plaguing Star Wars to even get another TV series up and running. It's like as if like the only pool of talent that they've got is who they have in rostered, but they're not looking for anybody else. And I'm like, the talent pool can stretch surely further because I've never heard of such like I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not really in the world of Hollywood, but maybe this is a common occurrence. I don't know. But based on a franchise that I really like, or used to like, honestly, um, I, I, I don't know. I just I don't know where we can see this going because I was always skeptical about the whole Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series to begin with, and I'm like, what are you going to talk about for like 8 episodes? And then I saw The Mandalorian, and it's like, oh, okay, babe, this is actually pretty good. So maybe there's something there, but I just didn't know what.
Yeah, and like for me, like when I heard the first news that the Clone Wars was going to get reignited and restarted again, I was like, okay, this is going to be fantastic, and that was exciting until I found out that it was literally just going to be just one season and it was going to be the final season. And I was like, well, you've got so many years you can still cover. Like, why would you come back, give a series back that, people have actually been dying for because the Clone Wars was done really well, and then be like, oh, yeah, sorry, it's just going to be one season, it's going to be the last, and hopefully this keeps you guys happy for a bit.
I was always actually really confused by its ending, and then since its ending, I was just like, okay, when are they going to finish it off? Are they going to leave it as a cliffhanger? And then when was season six? That was like what? Was that like 5 years ago? Or
5 or 6 years, yeah, it's been a very bloody long time.
like it was as if like they wanted to just stop it and then make way for the movies. And then now that the movies have finished, episode 7, 8, and 9, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to resume the Clone Wars. I'm like, what an odd. What an odd way to I don't know. It just feels odd in the way that they made that decision making.
Odd, yes, and way overdue. And again, it's going to be restricted because how do you end like you did in season six, pick it up again, and then somehow wrap it up in one season? I'm keen to see how they do it, and like I'm really hoping it sticks to really the tried and true method that's been working for them so far. And uh, well, I don't know, we haven't got long to wait, so I guess in a short month's time, if hopefully it does get pushed back again, we will know.
Well, because the thing is as well, I think they're also playing catch up because they canceled. What was it? Not Rebels. Star Wars Resistance.
Yeah, that one got canned, which, to be honest, I'm not surprised. I did try and give it a decent go a couple of weeks ago, and it was just boring. Like,
Oh, really?
didn't catch me at all. Yeah, like the first episode, just you got to start the first episode out with something. Man, it didn't hook me. And like I have a 3 episode rule where like I watch 3 episodes, and if it catches me, it catches me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And it just fell flat for me. So for me, that's just putting down something that shouldn't have been given life.
Was it supposed to be? Because I didn't really look up on it. Because I've still got to see Rebels. Um, the Resistance was just about like the Resistance, right? Like Poe Dameron and all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's built on a secondary side character who kind of like is like a, I guess in my way I call him a filler, where he kind of like fills in these little gaps on where these people come from and how it was formed. But I don't know, it was really one dimensional. The voice acting just was so bland. It didn't have any emotion behind it, and I just really felt like I was watching a primary school read out a movie, and it was just like, please kill me.
Was it like? Did it also have like other characters like Finn and all that stuff, or was it just more of a just a new universe with Poe Dameron? And because I knew Poe Dameron was confirmed, but then that was it, and just starfighter pilots, and that's it.
Pretty much, yeah. It was kind of just like off cut for Poe Dameron's kind of like sort of like squad and how they fit into everything and how he went from this ace little snack away pilot and what have you. And yeah, I didn't watch it all, so I can't give a full synopsis. So my 3 episode thing just died off. So if it got better after 3 episodes, anyone listening want to tell me in the comments, I might rekindle my interest. I don't know, but again, it just didn't really capture me enough to hook me in.
Mm, yeah, because when I heard about it canceling, I didn't really find it surprising. Um, but now I actually heard before actually coming here. Um, there was an interview, I think it was by Variety or something, with Diego Luna about his character for Cassio Andor, and I'm just like, because of his Disney Plus series, and I'm like, I wish I could care about your character, but you introduced him in Rogue One, then he died, and then that's it. Like, I don't know why you're doing prequel, uh, or a prequel TV series to outline his life. I just don't care.
Honestly, I would have loved to have been in that like boardroom when they pitched it, because I'm just like, how do you pitch someone who had no more than an hour and 40 minutes of screen time, and most of the time was just spent brooding? Like, how did you sell that in a pitch? I need to know.
That whole boardroom or something or whatever is going on Lucasfilm, I mean, it's easy to criticize, but you just can't help but sometimes think, or even think, not even sometimes fully, that they're not on the same wavelength. They're not thinking about the consumer. All it just feels like is that they're just thinking about is the dollar signs. And when they come up with like this rubbish about Obi-Wan Kenobi, oh, we got the scripts and all that stuff, and then it's revealed that they don't have the scripts, and then it's delayed, and then it's from eight, what was it, 8 episodes to six, six to four, and then just all this mess, like including the Han Solo movie, where they had to have like reshoots, and then the director debacle as part of that movie as well, and I'm like, just, it just sounds like it just sounds so unprofessional. And it's worse because there's people that are leaking that. So that just shows, I feel, as if like not everybody is on board. They don't give a damn about the clauses that they write in terms of NDAs. Because you just don't really hear that with other, say, I guess you don't hear it with other sort of TV shows or anything like that that want to fess up the dirty secrets, because there's no doubt that other TV series do get those problems and they do get issues with directors. It just sounds those parts sound normal, but when it's to a franchise that a lot of people um give a damn about and really like it, and then it just has all these hallmarks of a disorganized, disjointed, behind the scenes sort of feel, then you think, okay, um, I'm just gonna just walk away. And that's how I've actually felt ever since watching episodes 7, 8, and 9. I'm like, there's no future for maybe the movie sense of Star Wars, because Man, like I'm hearing stories and I'm reading, posts and stuff like that of people saying that they've gotten their kids to watch episodes 7, 8, and 9, and they're confused. Like they're confused between, like the kids are confused between episodes 8 and 9, and then what's worse is they're confused. Like they go, "Oh, why is Luke Skywalker like this? This doesn't seem like him." And when I read those comments or I read those like testimonials, I'm like, I feel kind of like Uh,
Disheartened?
oh yeah, feel disheartened. I just feel I wish that I didn't feel the same way as they did because it should be something different for kids, but it's definitely not. So one of those one of those testimonials I read was pretty harsh in saying that the kid just declared like the kid declared okay prequels 1 through to 3 and then 4 to 6 is what they'll keep and they'll say 7, 8, and 9 just stick to the cartoons. I think it was something like that. Like stick to like Sleeping Beauty, stick to Peter Pan, just leave Star Wars alone or something. And apparently the
Oh, damn.
child was aged 7 at the time, and I'm like, I'm not. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, when I was 7, I didn't really think like that. I don't think I even talk like that. So if a 7-year-old can say that, then Lord knows what other children are thinking about it as well when their parents introduce them to what they think is their, their childhood and what they deemed as important, say media and good storytelling and whatever.
Yeah, that's like a real downer because, as you said, the fact that these leaks are coming out and they're obviously coming from the people from within the company. Um, like to me, that just reeks that the people who, in to put a bit of jargon and slang on them, the people in the mud, the people who are down the bottom who work their ass off to try and make these things happen and try and come up with these ideas. I think really they're the ones that are probably more likely the ones that do leak the information because they're probably at a stage now where, the heads of the company, you know, Commandant Kennedy, as I'm going to call her now, is basically, just thumbnailing everything and just saying, no, that's not what we want. No, that's not what we want. And it's like, how many times do you get something pushed back before you have to say, you know what, screw this. I'm going to go outside of my agreements, outside of my legal things that I've signed off on, and I'm going to get this out to the people, and you're going to see your eyes what actually they feel about this. But even at the end of it, like, how can you sit on top of the company, on top of this wonderful franchise that has such a long standing history of honorable and loyal fans, and then sit there and go, no, we're going in the right direction. This is what we want. This is what the fans want. When the fans are literally sitting there face palming themselves, being like, what the fuck are you doing? Get it together, guys.
Because it feels as if, yes, it totally agreed. Because it feels as if that Disney and Lucasfilm are not being born of leaders in what used to be, I feel was Lucasfilm before they were bought out. They've just born a lot of bosses. So when I say between leaders and bosses, there's a lot of things where they want to include stuff in and they don't care what it's going to take. You hear about those stories about J.J. Abrams going, I didn't want to include this, or I just didn't really care about this part, and I just wanted to whatever. But then he subtly hints that it was upper management that told him to put that in, or whatever. So, and I feel as if that they were more they put a lot of their agendas mainly in episode 8. Um, when I was watching it and the moment that I saw the porgs, I was already thinking this is purely my first thought was porgs were purely there for the merchandise. And when I stopped to think about the movie when I first watched it, I felt gross that I have to think I had that initial reaction. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be in a movie and you go, "Oh yeah, this is purely for the money or purely for the merchandise." And then obviously all the other agenda-driven stuff that happened in The Last Jedi, you you just felt it. And then you felt the whole let the past die, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, you're talking to me as a Star Wars fan, trying to tell the fandom menace, which was something that I think was created out of the whatever from in America. For me, I'd never really paid much attention about the fandom menace, but I felt as if like the movie was talking to me directly, saying, "You're a fan. It's not your Star Wars. It's ours now, and this is how it's going to be, and this is not how it's going to end the way that you think." You know what I mean? And those particular messages that they put out, including the agendas that they drove in as well, with the slavery and all that stuff, which never came up in episode 9, or the things about those horses, the CG horses, animals, things
Or
never.
even like the whole capitalist idea of like selling to both sides that died as
Oh,
well.
that too, yeah, that too. The whole notion of, oh yeah, the war is just this, it just makes the rich richer and blah blah blah. And I then I thought to myself, okay, this is just disjointed, and you just want to put this again. It's another agenda filled, you know, it's just another agenda filled movie, and that's where you lose out in terms of movies or franchises that just don't have a great story. I guess maybe I was naive to it when I was younger, and I'm older, and I know about the whole, oh, are they gonna make a billion? Are they gonna do whatever? And people talk about, oh, they should make a billion and make a lot of money. I hate talking about money side of things. All I care about is I just want it to be a good story. I just want it to be something that's everlasting that I felt is going to pave the way for a new generation and entice me while I'm still alive. And I'm severely disappointed about this trilogy because I know for a fact that when I decide to probably watch it in its entirety, 7, 8, and 9, I'm just gonna get the bad flashbacks. And the reason why I would watch it is because just once, I just want to see how disjointed it is and whatever. Because from just to refresh my memory, and then just put it away or even sell it, and I'll just go, okay, I will always believe in 1 and 6 because it just didn't make any sense. And that's where I feel that Lucasfilm and Disney, yes, they listen to the people. Clearly they did, because that's how episode 9 was forged, by listening to the people. But at the same time, it's almost as if that they had already shot themselves in the foot by declaring, once they took over Star Wars and its properties, that they would completely destroy the expanded universe. And I think that was the first of many mistakes that they had that they were doing. And now, you know, you heard that comment about Kathleen Kennedy going, "Oh, we just don't have any material to go on," and blah blah blah, and trying to get new stories from writers. It can be a difficult task. And I thought to myself, but that's what the expanded universe was about. So what are you talking about? What are you saying about material
You
that you can't get?
literally have hundreds of years, thousands of years of material that you could pull off and just take with that. You don't have to create something new. Something's already there on paper that you can put to screen and it would still satisfy if you do it right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And for me, that's kind of, I'm leaning towards the question is, what is the future of Star Wars? I gotta say, I don't see there's much of a future. Um, and that's really unoptimistic. It's really un-Jedi-like to say that. But when you see, and I follow Mark Hamill on Twitter, he's already I feel as if he's already admitted defeat. I believe in his one of his last tweets when Rise of Skywalker came out, and he just said, "It's the end," you know. And I'm forever grateful for my fans, blah blah blah, and that's it. It's the end of the supposed Skywalker saga in parentheses. Um, and I feel sad that he says that because um, I mean, yes, it's the end, but at the same time, just the way that they handle this trilogy, God, I could. It's not as if like, okay, I'm a writer or I'm a script writer or anything like that, but when you get into your places, for me, when I get into my places of, say, um, I shouldn't say solitude, but if I'm thinking about something and it's got to be in a quiet place like my room or when I'm driving, which is weird, I probably shouldn't be deeply thinking while I'm driving, but
No,
like,
probably not.
no, but it's like, how did I get to the quickie mart? It's like, you know, and I'm thinking about robbing the quickie mart and I'm already back in my car driving away. So deep thinking about Star Wars and this latest trilogy, there's a fantasy of me thinking that I could have probably even done a better job talking about stories and stuff. Like, for example, just one example that I think is just the idea that Disney and Lucasfilm did not want to include Mara Jade in this trilogy. Um, like, what a great character, you know?
Oh, fantastic character and really well written in the story. So, again, something that's already written that you just need to bring to the screen, and you have a story.
Yeah, and being and for fans of those of Star Wars who read the expanded universe stories, um, would most likely have vivid imaginations. I can only assume because I have a vivid imagination. And when I read the arc about Mara Jade and how she met Luke and what happened to her and what she was beforehand, before she met Luke, it was just so intriguing. It was really interesting. And plus all those stories I felt were more impactful because they kept the original troop together. They kept the original, Chewbacca, R2D2, C3PO, Luke, Leia, and whatnot. Sure, there was a few stories that felt as if very coincidental. It felt like it harkened to 4, 5, and 6, but at the same time, I'm like, I like that familiarity, you know? I like that, uh, I like seeing them together. And just this 7, 8, and 9, we didn't get to see them together. And I felt it was just a massive disrespect to the OG, the older generation Star Wars actors, because I've always felt as well that it was just stupid to kill off Han Solo. Really stupid.
Oh, I see. See, I struggle with that one. Like when I think about his death, like mm, it worked. Like it did give that like dramatic effect, and it kind of it just gave that little bit of light that they were gonna do something different with it, but they were still gonna be a little bit respectful about it. Like having him killed off by his own son, like that lined up nicely, being the son being a dark side user and whatnot. But they didn't use it well. They done it, they ended it, but that was kind of it. They didn't really. They could have played it better in the other movies, moving on from 7, so through to 8, through to 9. There could have been a bit more development leading up to that. Like, there's things that still. With Han Solo's death for me, like they talk about, well, we lost our son, bring our son home. He fell to the dark side. You see the exchange between him and Luke, but where was the impact for Han and Leia? Like, why did we not see any sort of explanation or some flashback of them seeing Ben becoming Kylo, this transition of them having to say goodbye? Like, give us a scene where Luke goes up to Leia and says, I failed him, I failed you. That would be playing it well and giving that impact that you need. But they didn't do it.
That's the thing, though. they just didn't really think things through, and I still feel as if that the first mistake out of episode 7. Don't get me wrong, episode 7 I adored, and I still like it to this day. It's everything afterwards that I hate, because I watched The Force Awakens 5 times in the cinema, and I've never done that for any other movie. The best I've ever really done for, I think it was like multiple times, only twice maximum, was for something else. Lord knows what it was. I know I've done it only twice for something else, but like 5 times for The Force Awakens. And then I begrudgingly saw The Last Jedi twice, which was agonizing, and that agonizing. And I haven't gone to see The Rise of Skywalker a second time. That's how fucking jaded I am from this particular trilogy. So for me, I just felt as if that killing off Han was uh, whether the outside factors that Harrison Ford wanted to die and all that shit. I thought George Lucas was really good from, I believe, in Return of the Jedi, or yeah, it was George Lucas. I think just said, no, shut up, Harrison. It's my story, and you're not dying. Okay, it's just not going to work well for this trilogy. You know, the the fans, blah blah blah, whatever was reasoning, I can't remember, but I know he mentioned something about. I'm pretty sure somebody said something about George talking to Harrison Ford, saying something about the fans, and just saying, no, just stop, stop telling me that you want to die. This isn't this. It's not your story, and that's where I I really sort of thought that George Lucas, in all his weird wisdom, because I've heard some weird stories about him, um, that's a great decision that he made. Because could you imagine 4, 5, and 6 loving this sort of human trio, plus one Wookiee and two droids, be missing one at the very end of the trilogy of 4, 5, and 6? I just can't handle it.
Yeah, no, and it definitely would have lost like that kind of like triumphant feeling of victory in the end, and take away also like you would have missed his comedy as well, especially in the last one, like in the Ewok scene when they get captured, like that little Han Solo jokes in between, like they got captured and he's still making jokes, like I couldn't imagine those scenes without him in it. And yeah, you're right, it was the right decision to keep him alive. So yeah, it would have definitely been missing something.
Mm. And then selfishly, or rather stupidly, Lucasfilm and J.J. Abrams, I don't know, subverting expectations. That stupid fucking phrase. Just decided to put that in for him to die, and I was just thinking, it didn't have to be this way. It could have just been that he doesn't want to work for the Resistance, or he could just have minimal scenes. Because I already knew for a fact coming into coming to this trilogy, and I still remember the goosebumps I got from seeing Han uh, in the trailer. I saw 2 trailers and I thought, okay, I'm not going to see anything else, no TV spots, whatever. And it was good to see him. It was really good to see him all those years ago. And then I was just thinking, and then, then they killed him off. I just felt as if that he should have kept him alive, or there's had to be some sort of transition. He didn't have to have too much of a presence, but based on the leaks that I heard about, I don't know if it was Kathleen Kennedy that said it or something, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is, or even Bob Iger, where they said that they didn't want to have it's either the OG cast or Luke Skywalker. I'm pretty sure it was mainly on Luke Skywalker. They didn't in the first film. They didn't want him in there too much because it would detract the attention away from the new characters. And I just thought to myself internally when I first heard that, which was I believe a year after The Force Awakens and then before The Last Jedi, I just thought, but how could it not? Star Wars is Luke Skywalker. Star Wars is Han Solo, Chewbacca, and whatnot. So we were we were expecting that. We were expecting to see Luke, and then he just made the easiest 2 million of his life by actually just appearing on a mountaintop and taking off his hood, and that's it. And just giving this really blank stare to this girl who was trying to hand him his lightsaber. And then we get the Last Jedi, and he looks at the lightsaber, touches it, and throws it over his shoulder. And then I just knew we're downhill from here, boys and girls. It's just we're done. So, um, those are my initial takes on it because, well, not initial, but they're lasting takes on what had happened. And I just felt as if that the transition was poor. They could have done it so much more better, but you can see now in episode 9, it's clearly evident that if that was supposed to be episode 8, it could have been a pass for episode 8 with all the stuff that they did there. Barely any OG in it. Luke was barely in it. Um, you realize he was only there to catch the lightsaber, talk to her on Octo, lift up the X-wing, and that's it. And then he did a voiceover, and then he did some sort of Force Ghost crap on Tatooine, and that's it. So, I, it was a bad transition to have this new blood come in and even I don't give a shit about the new blood. I don't care about Poe Dameron. I don't. I don't care about Poe Dameron. I only mainly cared about Finn and Rey, and then that sort of disintegrated when apparently you find out, not in the movie, but outside of the movie, J.J. Abrams actually tells people, oh, he just wanted to tell her that he was force sensitive. Bullshit, dude. Bullshit.
See that's where I'm going to kind of chime in now. That whole post film shit where it's like, this was my biggest annoyance out of all the things they've done for the sequels. The last movie, how many bloody fucking YouTube videos came out in the first 3 weeks of Disney explains, Disney explains, Disney explains, Disney. If you make a movie right, you have no need or requirement to explain anything. The fact that you have to come out, Disney explains that scene with Poe, Disney explains this scene with blah blah blah, Disney explains why they did that there tells you enough of that the film was an utter failure, that the company has to actually spend additional resources and come out to the media and have to explain all these additional things that people have to come out of the movie and go, but what about? That was my indication that Disney completely dropped the ball in that sequel and really screwed the series.
And you'd be right. I agree, I concur. I concur wholeheartedly. This also is the same feeling that I had with The Last Jedi. Um, I was following a guy on YouTube by the name of SC Reviews, and he's actually Australian as well. And he followed The Last Jedi and all the news articles that happened before it. And Ryan Johnson, or I call him Ruin Johnson, Ruin Johnson, uh, yeah, whatever, come at me. Ruin Johnson for a whole year and whatever leading up to The Rise of Skywalker was constantly defending the movie, constantly. And I thought to myself, when did this become a norm when you're watching a movie and then you have to find the answers afterwards? Like, unless you're a diehard fan or you've got, you know, uh, more than a lot of time on your hands or whatever to do that, that's fine in a sense. But for the masses, for the main masses, or the unfortunately the not the free thinking masses, um, or even just I should say natural moviegoers. Sorry, I
Yeah,
shouldn't
it's a
call
bit more
masses like
polite.
that. Yeah, I should say natural moviegoers. Sorry, even myself. So I just insulted myself. Ugh, what an idiot. So the natural moviegoers would want to have the story, in a sense, 95, maybe 90% explained in the movie, and then sure, have a bit of hint and mystery. Um, but it just didn't come about. And J.J. Abrams is still talking about it, I believe, to this day. And I know we've digressed quite a lot a bit from talking about the main topic today, but it just really coincidentally reminds me, again, not only to turn back to the main topic, but earlier this week, there's just been a slew of leaks, dude. Slew of leaks. Even a couple of days before today, the previous director's vision, somebody has leaked conceptual, whoops, conceptual? That sounded concept art about the vision that he had for Star Wars, and the previous director was Colin Trevorrow, who I believe has had credits such as I think it was like Jurassic Park or something like that. Colin Trevorrow, he's a director, and they leaked, somebody leaked concept art about his vision for Star Wars, and it looked incredible, incredible. And there wasn't, and the thing is though, when it first leaked out, people were just like, oh God, whatever, is this true? Whatever, nah, it's gotta be a lie. And then somebody decided to Twitter him, and he just said, I think in like 2 sentences, yeah, this is my vision. These were concept art images for my vision, but with that one with R2D2, he didn't get killed. He just suffered a hit and has had a bad day, and C3PO is comforting him. So, and which reminds me, I'll probably have to put up some images of that concept art as well. But it just looked amazing. Like you could see Ray with a double bladed lightsaber, which I thought was going to be, again, I because of the Last Jedi, because everything was derailed by the Last Jedi. I feel if she had the double bladed lightsaber in Rise of Skywalker, I wasn't going to feel whatever. I didn't feel too much about it. But if she had the double light bladed lightsaber in the Last Jedi, and the Last Jedi could be rehashed and redone and retconned and whatever, other than the mess that we got, then I'd be like, okay, yes, beautiful. It'd be great to see somebody from, even I think that main character from Knights of the Old Republic. There was a Jedi with a double bladed lightsaber, right? It was a girl.
Yes, Buster Lashan.
Yeah. So, again, that would have been great to see her with a double-bladed lightsaber. Then there was other. You saw some of the concept art images. Like apparently they also wanted to put
Well,
in.
yeah,
Yeah. So
that
so they.
that image that showed Kylo and Vader fighting in similar style to Luke and Vader in Empire Strikes Back. I was just like,
Yes.
yes, 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 yes. Why did we not get that?
Why don't we get it? Because Disney. So we that was supposed to be, I believe, Darth Vader and Kylo Ren supposed to be a vision, and apparently Vader was supposed to best him, and that would have been cool to watch as well. Because there's no way Kylo would beat Darth Vader, I don't think. Um, and then there was some other concept art about, I believe the story that they wanted to go was Leia doing a little bit of a putting in a data disk in what's it called in BB-8, and they wanted to do a holocron video about her pleading to the galaxy about getting rid of the First Order and stuff like that. So I think, if from what I heard, sorry, from what I read, pardon me, and look at those pictures, it looked great. But here's another thing as well that I almost completely forgot. Earlier this week, there was apparently a script leak about Colin Trevorrow's vision for the movie. It was like some sort of draft or something. I don't know. And yes, there was different scenes and different ideas for the movie, and then there was some bits that sounded really awkward and whatever. But then again, I'm not too surprised that it's a draft. But there was a leak of that sort as well, and when I read that, I'm like, God, this is so much more better than what we got.
Yes, I read through that actual draft as well, and I got to the end of it, and like, I just kind of sat there and just like leaned back, and I was just like, this is what my life as a fan of Star Wars has become. These big moments of what if. Like, what if we'd gotten this vision? What if things never changed? And it's just yeah, like
It's
just for
exasperating.
yeah, like possible spoiler we always say, but that opening like scene in the draft where they talk about them actually stealing a first order Star Destroyer, and I was just like,
That's
that
amazing.
would have been freaking wicked.
That's
Like
amazing.
that is what rebels do. That is what resistance fighters do. They steal shit to get better. And just imagine rocking up to your rebel base in a goddamn Imperial destroyer, like oh sorry, not Imperial, First Order destroyer. And just like having Rey using her force tricks to trick the actual troops that are on there to just fly away and go about their day. It's like that's perfect. It's brilliant. It's that little bit of comedy. Star Destroyer, like Imperial. Oh my god, First Order destroyer. Uh,
That'd be amazing.
and the fact that it was going to end on Coruscant, like what a place to end of all places, like the center of the galaxy. Brilliant. And the fact that they bring up an old Republic remnant from the old Republic days as like a beacon of light. It's like, oh, you're pandering to, you're satisfying OG fans, but you're also satisfying fans who love the extended universe in the old Republic days. Like, that would have been great. And it's just like, again, it becomes the days of what if, and that is our life now.
Because in a sense, it's a really great point that you mentioned about Coruscant. Because if we had to go, if we no, it's not if we had to go. Diving back to the original, to the prequel trilogy, and essentially speaking, Colin Trevorrow, just by you mentioning Coruscant and me just thinking right now, was wanting to bring back everything to a circle because everything started at the Jedi Temple. And having a battle on Coruscant and having those AT-STs with the different markings and they've got spikes coming out of them and you've got these defective first order troopers joining the resistance and there's a full-fledged war on Coruscant. For me, that's not only exactly what you say. It's not only coming back to the OG fans and then not only providing something a little bit new in terms of a war and devastation of Coruscant, but for me, it's also coming back to the Jedi Temple, in which that Anakin Skywalker was the one who completely decimated the race of the Jedi. Um, at the same time as well, um, I don't know if that's what you were meaning in terms of OG, where in the Knights of the Old Republic, the trailers, or one of the trailers for Knights of the Old Republic, was the Sith invading Coruscant to destroy the Jedi Temple, right?
Yeah, not just any Sith, Darth Malgus, one of the OG bad boys.
Exactly right. I'm not too familiar with it, so again, I thank you for filling that for me and those who are listening. Um, that's that's the thing where I feel as if Colin Trevorrow was looking at that from the video game standpoint, and then he thinks to himself, "Uh, God, I would love to. I won't lie. I would love to think. I would be really happy if I was right that he thought about this, and we had the same feeling. The reason why he would want to bring up a war on Coruscant and have the civilians go up against, because essentially those concept art had civilians wanting to fight and join the resistance and fight against the First Order rubbish, the First Order invasion, and what the First Order should have been. This large terrorist group that thought that they were, the Imperials of several generations before, that the residents of Coruscant were sick to death of war. You know what I mean? Like eons in the Old Republic, the Coruscant was a battleground for the Sith and the Jedi. And then the Coruscant was under attack from the Republic, having the clone troopers destroy the Jedi. And it's many, people who got involved in that particular skirmish. And then this time now, with the Resistance and the First Order, I feel as if like Colin Trevor would have thought, okay, the Coruscant locals have just had enough. They've just had enough. And now they're trying to defend their planet from this new tyranny, and they're wanting to get involved this time. Maybe because, well, this is a stretch, but maybe because they like the Jedi. They like the Jedi Temple. But mainly the reason because Coruscant has always been used as a battleground for years and years and years and generations. So it's like practically a history of warfare on a planet that's supposed to be a history of technology and um, prosperity and quite a good economy from the lore that I read about Coruscant. So I wouldn't be surprised if Colin sort of thought about that and just that, yeah, why don't we just have the resistance? Sorry, why don't we just have the locals like completely, just do a 180 and go, okay, we want to get rid of these foreign invaders. We're sick to death of the First Order doing all this crap, and it's time now. We've got to, not have Coruscant as a battleground anymore.
Yeah, exactly right. And like going back to that Knights of the Republic trailer, um, that final scene where Mal just drives his lightsaber through that Jedi Master, and he kind of, when he comes down and hits the ground, he looks up and he looks into the sky of Coruscant, and he sees the Sith battleships coming into the actual planet core. Like, like you, I'd like to think that Colin looks at that scene and goes, "Hey, can we do something like that for our kind of ending? Have like one of the major characters, like having like going by that draft and how Hux was in that draft, and now calling himself Chancellor Hux, and having more power over Coruscant and having his own little Imperial Council. For me, like when I think about that draft playing with the Old Republic, like having a scene where Hux is essentially struck down by someone who I don't know. If I was going to pick a character, I would probably like go away from the draft because I read the draft. They had Chewbacca flying an X-wing, which I think is a bit of a ludicrous concept, but I'll roll with it. But having someone like Chewbacca kill Hux would be a pretty cool outcome for me. But like having Hux kneeling down, looking around, seeing his First Order crumbling, and then looking up to the side, and I think if I have a Corellian cruiser, because that would be a good play to the OG days, have a Corellian cruiser, or even not kind of blank that one, can't remember. Mon Calamari ship, even one of those, come through the atmosphere into Coruscant would be, a nice dramatic play out. And like that's the kind of vision I get when I think about the First Order ending on Coruscant. And I agree, you are right that the people of Coruscant, they've suffered. Like they're supposed to be this really prosperous city, technological, diplomacy, order, peace. They don't want to be fighting, but of course, it's wars always come. And I don't think so much that they probably like the Jedi because they probably enjoy having them there as peacekeepers and they're relaxed. But I think, there may be some of them who may link a lot of the wars to the Jedi because each time there has been a war, it has been linked to the Jedi Council being attacked, not always directly linked to the Jedi. A lot of the time it is just the Sith wanting to strike them and start wars. Or the Republic themselves kind of like dragging the Jedi into their own conflicts when they're there to be peacekeepers, not generals, as they've always stated. But no, like ending on Coruscant would have felt right instead of some weird ass random Sith planet that's just popped out of nowhere that I'm going to now end the series on.
Yeah, and Coruscant is also familiar as well. So again, onto your statement about this random planet called, I don't know. That's how forgettable it is. I just don't give a shit about what the planet's called. It's honestly just in a sense for story 101 and stuff. It's just tragic. But you mentioned about General Hux becoming Chancellor Hux. One of the concept art was showing him committing suicide with a lightsaber. Now, obviously, as dark as that is, um, I would have thought that would be a fitting end to him because in the beginning with Star Wars: The Force Awakens, when you see him do that speech and his dedication to Snoke and all that stuff, that speech obviously is one that I'll always go back to because not only was the acting good for that particular, say, in real life situation, Domhnall Gleeson gave that speech a lot of credence and a lot of emotion, and you can see it as he screams it. But with the character as well, like the guy shows loyalty to and belief to what he's saying and what he's doing. So you would think that okay, he would want to be um, excelling that into a wider range of, say, different fields, such as into the economy, into the republic, into, this having even a voice in the Senate. and if he was to end up as chancellor, that would have been amazing. But then to see the fall of the First Order and then him taking a lightsaber and committing his own seppuku or committing his own death, suicide, I think that's fitting, but it's too dark. And then add to that, why does he have a lightsaber? Because apparently he's got a collection, kind of like General Grievous, and I believe it was Star Wars Theory who found more information on this. Star Wars Theory, the YouTube channel, um, who found out that the lightsaber that he uses is Mace Windu's lightsaber. That for some strange reason he was able to have found that or acquire that, and he has old lightsabers in some sort of collection that he's managed to find in the galaxy that belong to prominent Jedi Masters. And for some reason, he has Mace Windu's one, and he uses it to kill himself, which is just poetic justice, I think, because in a sense that shows that Mace Windu eventually completed his task of getting rid of not really the Dark Lord of the Sith, but he was supposed to get rid of a Chancellor, and his lightsaber did it for him in a way that was just committing suicide. So I thought that was a great idea as well. That Mace Windu comes full circle. His last action is completely sort of come. The circle of that particular action is now complete. So
Takes
yeah,
a long time, but he got there.
yeah, it takes a long time, but he got there. So I like that idea as well. So again, shout out to Star Wars Theory who found that information and who I thought, yeah, that would have been amazing to see. So a lot of missed opportunities, and this week has just been full of leaks for all this stuff. So it kind of still, now that I think about it, now that I brought it up, it's kind of just reinforced me again to think that um, Star Wars as a franchise, I don't know, man. The big screen, definitely not. The little screen, maybe, but with already issues with Obi-Wan Kenobi, um, and again Cassian, whatever. I don't give a shit about that character. Um, that's it. Those two.
Well,
I don't
there
know.
was one rumor I came across. Don't know if you've come across it yet. Don't know the authenticity. It's come up on a couple of pages,
Oh,
been very self-funded ones. But do you remember the rumor about Kevin Feige's working on his own standalone Star Wars film?
I heard something to that effect. Yeah.
Yes. Well, apparently, going by new information, but apparently this one only come across as published yesterday, but back in November he denied it, but now it's been published again, so I'm thinking there might be some credence to it. There is a rumor going around now that Kevin Feige actually doesn't want to do a standalone Star Wars film, but in fact he actually now wants to head the Disney section of Star Wars and actually take over from Kathleen Kennedy and actually lead the actual cinematic universe again.
That. I mean, that's new, and just as a reaction to that from you telling me, uh, I see some good points, and I see some bad points. Like just quickly, because yeah, that's a really good note to end on. Like the good points that I would think for him for Feige to even want to helm the Star Wars thing is because of his successes with the Marvel Universe. That's a given. That's definitely one of the positives that you would just automatically think when you think about Kevin Feige. And just the way that the the rumor has it the storyboards for the last 10 years of Marvel was just this massive, like, it's kind of like a murder board, or what they used to call murder boards, or just the planning boards where they have like all these different interconnections, like Black Panther and this is and this, who does Black Panther branch off to, blah blah blah. Apparently that room is just like, under lock and key, and at the time, and it was just like top secret government um, sort of room where they didn't want the stories to get leaked and all that stuff. But his track record with Marvel is almost impeccable. The bad points is that I feel is that if he was going to venture into this, would something has got to suffer for it. Like you can't be Mr. Perfect. And if he's not looking into the Marvel universe from which he was originally hired for, I have a feeling some of the Marvel stories in the next generation or what's supposed to be the next phases could suffer from it.
Potentially, yeah, but again, like he headed Marvel, yeah, but he had a great team underneath him who worked on those storyboards and worked on those characters. So I think short term, I think Marvel is in capable hands. But again, like as you said, something has to suffer. So for me, if he was to move into Star Wars and head that, there's a possibility that the next trilogy that's apparently planned for 2022 to go through to 2026, he might push that back a little bit because it was originally going to be headed by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, but apparently they're dropping out because they're doing their Confederate show for Netflix. And Commandant Kennedy's going to announce a new director later this month, before February, which, to your possible dismay, apparently Taika Waititi is the favorite to take the lead on the next trilogy. Don't,
Mm.
yeah, I know. Take it easy, Chewie, easy. Um, but I think, like, if he did, I think probably from his track record, he might just say, "Hey, let's push back the new trilogy to 2024 and get David Benioff and DB Weiss back on board because they already had some scripts and some storyboard written up, and they actually wanted to go back and actually do a trilogy on the Old Republic. So go back to the old wars with Malgus, with Satil Shan, with the Old Master. So I think that would be something that would take a slight hit. But if they want to go, if David and DB want to go back to the Old Republic and spend a bit more time on it, as a Star Wars fan, I'd say, sweet, take your time, give us something that isn't going to be convoluted, that's actually going to be interconnected and free flowing. But I think that would be the big thing, and I think also he would most likely pull and stop Rian, or Ruin as you'd like to call him, from doing his own trilogy and pull him away and say, no, bugger off, you're not touching this anymore, you had your chance, you fucked that up. I think really he may actually even push to extend the Obi-Wan series a bit more as well and try and create a bit more depth into it, and who knows, he may actually do what he did with Marvel and have his little secret lock and key room and start drawing up a Star Wars universe and be like, okay, here's what we got. We've got the Mandalorian, we've got the Obi-Wan, we've got the Clone Wars series, we've got a new trilogy we're going to push back. That's going to go to the Old Republic. But how are we going to interconnect the Old Republic to the prequels? How are we going to fill that gap? Let's do it like this. And I think really it would be in better hands with him than it would be with Commandant Kennedy, and I don't think anyone would disagree. But I think that's going to come down to Kevin's decision to whether or not he actually is going to do it, and whether the Disney board actually has the balls to actually push that bitch Kennedy to the curb and put it in the hands of somebody who's actually got a proven track record.
It's really I completely forgot about Taika Waititi and then the pair DB Weiss, DB Weiss, was it DB Weiss?
Yeah, D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. Well, Benioff. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those two. But it's really interesting that you mentioned that because A, I forgot about them, and B, actually the fact that you mentioned them kind of reinforces my want for Feige to actually lead, say, a Star Wars trilogy. Because, um, don't get me wrong, what I just said a few moments ago was the realist in me. Nobody's perfect, and surely something must suffer. But as opposed to having those directors that you mentioned, Ruin Johnson, Taika Waititi, and then those two that were that didn't want to the Game of Thrones directors, weren't they? Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, so that debacle, like, it just shows, right? Just how, again, disjointed and disorganized Lucasfilm and Disney are. They couldn't get those two for Game of Thrones. They couldn't get an agreement, and then just kind of.
Oh, not so much an agreement, sorry. They rejected it because their words, from what they said in the interview, was if they could not do both Confederate and a Star Wars trilogy and deliver on both of them. So they said, We need to focus on one thing to make sure we get it right. If we're crossed over and doing two things at once, we'll do dishonesty to both of them. And this is their words: Star Wars fans don't deserve that.
Oh, and well, that gives more credence and more positive sort of vibes from them that they know exactly what they're talking about. But it just seems as if that when you said Confederate, like was that like a TV show that they were doing, or I don't know what that was.
Yeah, it's going to be a TV show based on America, US during the Confederacy War. I
Ah,
don't have a lot more detail than that, but like I've read a little bit of the synopsis. I can't remember it at the top of my head right now, but it's one I'm going to definitely keep an eye out for. So they done great with Game of
ah,
Thrones for the ones they did. So I'm keen to see what they do with the old US Civil War.
that's really cool. So essentially, because this is the first ever I've either forgotten it or just remembered by it because you've reminded me. So essentially, they pulled out because they said that they didn't want to do two projects at the one time, and then one of them suffering, which is most likely the Star Wars one, because they were really thinking about the Confederate TV series priority wise, right?
Yeah, because they were already well and truly I think about 8 months into Confederate
Oh
planning when they got
wow.
approached to do the next trilogy. So they're like, no. We need to get we want to get them both right. So we're not going to do Star Wars because we don't want to really do worse than what's already happened, so to speak.
Ooh, okay, so okay, I won't. I'll take those two out of my sort of what I was about to say. Taika Waititi and Ruin Johnson. No, Taika Waititi. No, just no. I say no because don't get me wrong. He's a great director. He's helmed and showed Marvel what he's capable of doing, and he's helmed a few of their movies, which came to great success. But if he was to because Marvel movies, they have their comedy, right? But then you want if there's that nepotism where they want Taika Waititi to do just because he was in The Mandalorian. And yes, he did a great job of actually directing, I believe it was the last episode of The Mandalorian.
I'm not too sure. I have to actually double check later on, but can't remember off the top of my head which one he did.
Yeah, I think it was like the last episode or something, but that was good. But the thing is, it's again, your mindset, it shows that his mindset for TV series is pretty good, with the balance of action and the balance of whatnot, of comedy. His movie style is quite a lot of comedy in it, but if he was supposed to helm like a trilogy for Star Wars, I don't know, man. Like, is it going to be worse than Ruin Johnson? Because Ruin Johnson, like for The Last Jedi, just put in all sorts of gags, almost like at every 2 minutes, and it's just awful. It was awful.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like Taika style is very comedy based. Like I remember one of his first films I saw was What We Do in the Shadows, the vampire film, which was absolutely hilarious and definitely something I rewatch very regularly because I just love the hell out of it. Um, but yeah, he is very, very comedy based, and that was proven when he done Thor. Just a lot of comedy built into it. But again, the Star Wars universe, it's not a comedy universe. It's a dark universe. It's a depressive universe, to put it lightly. It's very action packed, which he's shown that he can do the action. But if if I was going to give him a chance, and if he does get named, the only word of advice I would give him would be do the comedy right, lax up a little bit, and take some time. Like, actually go to some Star Wars conventions, have some FaceTime with the fans, hear what we're saying, listen to the words, take in our ideas, look for the writers who have written books outside of the universe. Like, look for your actual documented writers, like Drew Karpyshyn, who done the Darth Bane trilogy. Look to those guys. They're going to be your best help. So if you're going to do it right, do your research, get out there, and do not. If Kevin Feige doesn't take over and you're stuck with Commandant Kennedy, honest to God, get a roll of duct tape her fucking face up, lock her into a cupboard, lock the key, and do the job right.
Yeah, that's brutal. Like I wouldn't say it in that way, but I probably thought it. But yeah, that's brutal. And hopefully he would if he was ever given that kind of advice because uh, I don't know. I just don't like the idea of him having a trilogy. Hell, I don't understand why they have to think about. Actually, now that I think about it, why would you want to just have one person helming a trilogy? Like, uh, don't unless you're still thinking about the prequels, which was helmed by George Lucas. He was the one that did all three, which is crazy now that I think about it. But with 4, 5, and 6, they all had their different flavors from three different directors. Richard Marquand and Lawrence Kasdan and all that stuff. Like, I don't understand what's this whole helming a trilogy, helming that pressure or whatever. Just get three talented, three talented directors that really love Star Wars and could probably see the vision of how they were as consumers and moviegoers before they were directors. You're probably going to have probably a good outcome for it. Um, Hell, have Ron Howard come by. I mean, he had to try and salvage that crap, which was Han Solo, the Han, what was it, Solo or Star Wars story.
Solo Star Wars story, yes.
Yeah, so, but even that was a chore to watch, like for real. I didn't understand why Leonard Calrissian had to be like stuck in a robot. And then when I heard about the comments before the Rise of Skywalker, Billy D. Williams, like he said that he saw Solo, a Star Wars story, and he was like, "Why would Lando Calrissian like be in love with a robot, man? That's just freaking weird."
Poor Billy D had to watch that. Poor guy.
Right? And because he made that character, to be honest, and then they did this prequel, and it's just looking at just this character that you just know would not do something like that. That would want to be mechanically there's not even a word for that. I know there's people with animals with bestiality, but what is it with people and robots? Like,
Yeah, I can't imagine a time anyone would look at a power socket and be like, I just want to stoop that. I want to put my part inside of that. Like,
and it's
okay,
free, yeah, and it's practically free thinking AI as well. And now that it powers up the Falcon, it's like, so
yeah, that gives me dirty thoughts now whenever I think about watching the originals.
well, I try not to think about it. I've actually forgotten it until I just remembered it now, and I'll forget about it because that Solo or Star Wars film was absolute rubbish. Like, I still think that whole ending where she's like, "Oh, Darth Maul just comes out of nowhere," and I'm like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, that just made no like from the extended universe. Yeah, we knew he was kind of sticking around then and kind of floating around, but it was odd and weirdly timed, like to slap it right at the end and be like, "Here, Darth Maul. See you guys, Star Wars."
Yeah, there you go.
That yeah, I'm just gonna end it there. That was no, we don't want to carry on more with that one. Leave Solo where it needs to be, in the garbage bin.
In the garbage bin. Yeah, exactly. Just leave it as it is. Okay, final question because I didn't realize how long we were going. So, just to sum it up, I've kind of already given, not kind of, I've already given my take on what the future of Star Wars is going to be. And for me, it feels bleak. It feels really bleak. I should be more optimistic, but I just don't really care anymore. But what would be your lasting thoughts on it?
If I'm gonna wrap up, I'm cautiously optimistic or cautiously hopeful. I think take some time, sit back, digest what's happened, give it a long time. Like, don't rush. I think 2022 is too soon for another movie trilogy. I think, honestly, give it a bit more time. It was 2019 when we ended it. 3 years is not enough. Take your time, guys. Like, Mandalorian's given the fans a little bit of hope to stick on to. Clone Wars Season 7 is going to satisfy us for a little bit because even when Clone Wars releases, everyone's going to go back to Episode 1, Season 1 and go through again because we're not going to jump straight to Season 7. We're going to want a nice little review, so we've got some time there. Mandalorian's going to cover us for the time being. Just enjoy those ones while they're there. Take some time back, reorganize yourselves, get some people lined up. For the love of God, give David Benioff and D.B. Weiss some time to finish Confederate and go to them because I think, honestly, they're probably going to do a lot better job than what's happened. But don't give the trilogy to one person. Like, if you want to go with Taika, sure, use him, but maybe use all three of them. Give them all three time to actually sit in a room together, go, hey, here's our trilogy idea. David, you take the first one. Taika, you take the second. DB, you take the third. Cool, awesome. David, what are you going to do for the first episode? Well, here's where I'm going to go with it. Awesome, Taika, you pick up from there. How do you want to go from there? All right, Taika goes, cool, this is where I want to take it. Sit down and take your time. Work with your directors. For love of everything, if you don't like what the director's doing, don't cut them out. Give them time to actually digest it and see if they can modify it. Relax. The fans are always going to be here. We're pissed right now because you delivered something that was so incoherent and so disconnected and disjointed that even the greatest analysis in our times could not dissect what the hell was going on. But we're still going to be there. We still love the franchise. The originals still hold true to us. The prequels are still entertaining. Yeah, Jar Jar's a weird freak, but I love the little bastard. We've got those to hold on to for the time being. Mandalorian's holding out nicely. Relax, kick back, look at your paycheck, go on a bloody holiday, you assholes. Then come back to us when you've taken the time to actually write something up that's going to work. That's my last rap.
And it's a really good and several really good points there that I have to concur on. I've actually completely forgotten again that um it was a rushed job. This particular trilogy, it feels as if like they just wanted to just get it out there and satisfy the fans. Well, maybe that, or just wanting to just you know, um, the timeline that they did, I still remember, which was very much similar to what Marvel's timeline was for movies. I thought, okay, that's pretty insane. You want to have one movie, then a standalone movie, then the next episode, then another standalone movie. So I'm like, okay, every year I get Star Wars, but at the same time, I still remember the prequels, and I have no issues with the prequels. I've always loved Jar Jar. I've had no issues with them at all. I still remember the prequels being, from what I gathered, because I was obviously that was the next installation of Star Wars films from 4, 5, and 6. That Star Wars is an event. It's not. It's unlike anything else that uh, that was like it before. Star Wars had a big risk when it first came out. Everyone knows that, and then it just became into this massive fandom after the first movie, and then up episode 4, and then episode 5, and then episode 6. So I still remember when they were going to announce that there was going to be a prequel trilogy talking about whatever. I was like, I'm excited for it. And then I think for them, I can't remember the differences between the movies. I think it was like 2 years differences in the movies. Between 1, 2, and 3 when they came out. I can't remember, but all I know is that it was an event, unlike any other. And this trilogy just felt like it was just churning out a story for the sake of a story, and it was a shit story. It was a badly concocted story that kind of actually shits on um, the story story writing 101. You know, it doesn't have. It's got a clear protagonist. That's much is clear, but the protagonist doesn't go through any hardships, you know? And then at the end, um, with the end result is the reason why she doesn't go through hardships is because she's a Palpatine. That's the answer. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody's perfect. This is shitting on the actual template of story writing 101. Yes, you have your stories where, they go through it's what makes them heroes. It's what makes them heroines. They have to go through something that is life altering, life changing, and then you know, and then they become the hero that they are supposed to be, or they become the hero that they're humbled, but they become this sort of hero figure. And I didn't get that with this trilogy. I didn't get that with Rey. Um, Even though they tried to humanize her a little bit more in Episode 9. and it's just rushed writing. It's rushed bad writing. And you make a really good point about them just having to take some time off and just, just they have to have that discussion. Um, they have to have those. They have to be thinking a little bit better than just the dollar signs. It's supposed to be, again, Star Wars is an event. It's supposed to be. I always associated. I hated when everybody uses the word epic for everything. Like, oh, this was so epic and that was epic. No, no, it wasn't. Star Wars is an epic event. You know. So yeah, I'd have to agree with you on saying that they would have to they have to have some time to just relax and just not be pressured by a deadline or anything, some stupid shit like that. They have to think up of a good story. And for some reason, every time I see Colin Trevorrow's stuff in terms of his leaks and the scripts earlier this week and the pictures, I'm like, you've done something a lot better in the time that was afforded to you than somebody else. Um, but apparently the reason why they didn't want Colin Trevorrow there was because apparently he was butting heads with some of the Lucasfilm executives and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, then reach a compromise or something or whatever. You don't just take like yes men like Ruin Johnson and J.J. Abrams, who has admittedly said that he cannot end a story for the life of him. Like you look at Lost, the TV series. I was lost after the fourth episode, right? Because of how freaking convoluted it was. And then I heard about the ending and read about it. I'm like, that is the shittest ending I've heard in such a long time. So you get these yes men and you get short term gains but long-term misery, I think. So that's what I feel that the trilogy is. And again, I'll probably say my wrap up is I'm finding it a bleak sort of future for it. I mean, I should be optimistic, but I just honestly don't care anymore. um, and it's a shame. If something happens, sure, I'll probably get back on board, but right now, just talking about it today, it was just like, wow, I just cannot believe how much the percentage of care factor for me is like below zero.